He wanted to be an admiral in the Navy, and that was his nickname, the Admiral.
And Michael Anthony Barbario was well on his way. 21 years old, a Navy nuclear engineer, an avid motorcycle rider. Until July 4th weekend 2008, when he was cut off by a distracted driver in Georgia. By the time his parents, Jody and Bobby, drove up from Tampa Bay, he was dead.
The two people from the Navy came, and that's kind of when it really sinks in.
It's been nearly 9 years since their son was killed by the driver suspected of texting.
My son, a hero, killed by a distracted driver.
But for Bobby and Jody, the pain is constantly fresh, because every time another motorist dies due to texting and driving, they're reminded of the lack of appetite in Tallahassee to change Florida's distracted driving laws among the weakest in the nation.
Texting behind the wheel is a primary traffic offense in 41 states, but Florida's not one of them. It's one of 5 states where it's a secondary offense, meaning you can't be pulled over just for texting until you do something else dangerous and potentially deadly first. And even if you get a ticket for texting behind the wheel in Florida, it's only a $20 fine with 0 points on your license. Our texting and driving laws are so toothless here. I can take a selfie, bragging about my cell phone skills at high speeds, show it to an officer, and that is still not enough for him or her to write me a ticket for this dangerous behavior. What will it take for you to want to toughen the texting and driving laws in Florida?
So I would like to make the roads as safe as possible. I have 6 children.
This is House Speaker Richard Corcoran, whose blessing is all but required for any new law to pass. What do you need to see?
You need to have evidence that this is, let's look at what those other 41 states are doing. You can come with an objective answer. Is this good policy for the state or bad policy for the state?
He says his office is looking for proof that a ban on texting and driving makes the roads safer.
First of all, how about the study that showed texting behind the wheel slowed a driver's reaction time as much as 4 beers did? Second of all, you're asking us on Facebook why the Speaker of the House really needs a decade's worth of data to crack down on something we all know is absurdly dangerous. Why are you not more supportive of that?
Well, it's a balancing act. Balancing people's rights, people's civil liberties with the protection of the people on roads.
Tallahassee insiders tell us Corcoran's concern for your civil liberty to text while driving is one of the major roadblocks to toughening Florida's distracted driving laws. And it could cost lives, according to the officers who say the current law is unenforceable, ineffective, and dangerous. St. Pete Police Chief Anthony Holloway.
We want to protect our children and we want to protect our family members. That this should be a primary stop so the officer can give you a warning or write to the citation and say stop using it. Until you see some type of consequences to this, you're going to continue to use that phone.
And that's why so many families of victims continue to suffer.
That's a useless law.
That is useless.
It does nothing. It does nothing. It doesn't force people to think about their actions ahead of time. There are no consequences.
The average text message will take your eyes off the road for more than 4 seconds. On a major road, that's like driving the length of a football field blindfolded. Certainly enough distance to kill.
You know, willing to give his life for his country, and yet it was taken by a distracted driver.
So why is Florida one of only 9 U.S. states where officers can still not pull you over for texting and driving?
Do you think that making it a primary offense would actually hurt the situation?
I think in some states what you're seeing is it doesn't help, and sometimes it is showing that it's actually hurting.
So leading lawmakers are claiming cracking down on texting behind the wheel could make our roads more dangerous? Time to break down the 3 main reasons they're in no rush to toughen some of the country's weakest distracting driving laws. First, they claim accidents aren't dropping in states where texting is a primary traffic offense, one you can actually be pulled over for. They say banning texting behind the wheel might infringe upon your civil liberties. And they say police could abuse the new tool to pull anyone over. But are those explanations or excuses?
Why haven't you been more supportive of that over the years?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we want to make sure that this texting and driving primary offense laws work. In many states, we're not seeing a reduction of accidents.
Jeff Brandes is one of the state Senate's leading players on transportation. He points to a 2010 report that suggested texting bans could encourage drivers to drive worse if they hide their phones in their laps more, therefore taking their eyes off the road longer. But there are also numerous conflicting studies that suggest cell phone bans reduce hospitalizations and fatalities. House Speaker Richard Corcoran says texting bans are still too new to know yet if they're a good fit for Florida.
Those 41 states, they didn't have it 5 years ago. This is all relatively new.
Actually, most of those states did outlaw texting more than 5 years ago, 35 states to be exact.
There's a lot of uses. They make phone calls. That's not an issue. That's not an issue in those other 41 states. They use it oftentimes for GPS purposes. Also not an issue in those 41 states.
Actually, 14 states ban all handheld device use behind the wheel. You've got to use Bluetooth, which is the only real way to curb this epidemic, according to the parents of that 21-year-old service member killed by a distracted driver.
We really need to be hands-free. Your hands need to be on the steering wheel. And it just makes me so angry. I look over and I see moms in the car with their kids, and they're texting or they're Facebooking or whatever, social media, anything.
Explanation number 2 for not toughening up Florida's toothless texting laws: it could violate your all-American right to operate a phone behind the wheel.
Balancing people's rights, people's civil liberties, with the protection of the people on roads.
Corcoran doesn't want to infringe upon your rights, but Florida already has a law in place that requires you to wear a seatbelt while driving. That's even a primary offense, so cops can pull you over for it.
Why is this different?
Well, we also have laws on the books called distracted driving. They could be putting on makeup, they could be eating food. All of those things right now, law enforcement has every full right to pull them over.
Yeah, distracted driving's a big problem in general, but cops can't pull you over in Florida for any of the things he mentioned until you do something else dangerous or potentially deadly first. And hang up number 3 about actually requiring drivers to hang up those handheld devices, concern that cops will abuse the power, potentially to profile minorities.
Creating a situation where law enforcement can pull you over for any reason will lead to all kinds of negative consequences.
We didn't see that with seatbelts.
We didn't see, well, but the major difference between this and seatbelts is people are putting on their seatbelts. But here, I don't even have to say that you had your seatbelt on. I can just pull you over because I see you have a phone in your hand.
But law enforcement leaders like St. Pete Police Chief Anthony Holloway say concerns are unfounded about what officers might do with a tougher texting law.
We don't profile people. I always say that. We do the same thing as everybody else. If you see the person next to you using a cell phone, then you're going to pull them over.
He says it's a no-brainer to ban something so dangerous, not just texting, but all cell phone use behind the wheel.
We need that tool in our toolbox so we can educate our people. You may get a ticket. It may be an expensive ticket. So pull over, take a half a second, and stop texting.
It is 6 o'clock and breaking news right now. This is a long time coming. The biggest hurdle in the way of toughening Florida's weak texting and driving laws appears to finally be moving out of the way. 10 Investigates Noah Pransky put a lot of pressure on state lawmakers over the last year, and now he joins us this morning with this breaking news. And Noah, is Florida finally going to join more than 40 other states in making this a primary traffic offense?
I think, Hillary, this will be the year, and that's because Speaker of the House, Richard Corcoran from Pasco County, one of the single biggest opponents of tougher texting and driving previously, says he'll finally support the laws now. He told me this week, in fact, texting right now in Florida, a secondary offense, meaning you can only be pulled over and ticketed if you're doing something else dangerous first. And even if you get caught texting, it's only a $20 fine here with 0 points on your license. That makes Florida one of the 5 weakest states in the country on distracted driving. So 10 Investigates kept taking your concerns to lawmakers. We heard them online, we heard them in person, and the lawmakers told us that they needed more evidence that tougher texting laws would be a good idea. Even a study after study and victim after victim indicated this is an epidemic that needs attention.
My son, a hero, killed by a distracted driver. We really need to be hands-free. Your hands need to be on the steering wheel.
What do you need to see?
You need to have evidence that this is, let's look at what those other 41 states are doing. You can come with an objective answer. Is this good policy for the state or bad policy for the state?
But a big change of tone now. That man you just saw, House Speaker Richard Corcoran, told me in an interview this week that he has now seen enough. He'll help fast-track a new distracted driver bill through the House, and if it passes, officers would finally be able to pull you over simply for texting and driving. It's a big step forward here, but it won't entirely ban you from using your phone behind the wheel. The law would still allow you to check for directions, weather, even read email. It does ban texting, though, and Corcoran says yesterday to me, he tells me that he's convinced this is the right move for Florida.
What we know from texting and driving bans throughout the nation is that it absolutely does reduce crashes, it absolutely does save lives, and what it really does is create a deterrent behavior for people to start being much more responsible about how they drive and the use of their cell phones.
So the law also prohibits officers from accessing or confiscating your phone without a warrant. Some say that's just another loophole, but Corcoran says it's an important civil rights protection.
It's a step in the right direction. So 50,000 accidents a year due to distracted driving in Florida. That number is crazy. Hundreds, maybe thousands of lives lost. So this isn't a done deal yet, and I think that's what's a little frustrating.
The biggest concern up to this point from both the far right and many on the far left has been the civil liberties aspect of this. Can officers pull you over for just thinking you look funny? The Black Caucus in Tallahassee has objected to any tougher texting laws, but Richard Corcoran, the speaker, says hopefully with these protections they can move forward. We'll see how this battle shapes up. But I have a feeling, Hillary, this will get done next year, and we want to hear what you guys think. Head to my Facebook page right now, Noah Pransky. Going to continue this debate there.
And Noah will have a Facebook Live at 9 o'clock on 10 News WTSP page, so we're so close.